absolutely pleased with the way this came from start to finish, in that I am an experienced person in the construction industry, so I wasn't sort of just dreaming with no foundation and knowledge about how to build things. But then again, architects don't know how to build things. They know the general parameters of what's buildable and what's not buildable, but I'm no builder. But this was one of those wonderful projects where you do a pencil sketch and you show it to a few people and they go, oh yeah, I get it, and then everything runs from there. And that was the joy of this job. Sometimes I've had the experience of showing a sketch to people and they are yeah, you know, and when you get that response, you know it's going to be really hard and there's something wrong with what you're proposing. So it's really just feeling your way. But in the end, what we've come to is actually, it's so satisfying in that it really does speak pretty directly to the sketches that I did at the beginning, but also it's for an architect, it's great reinforcement to do your own jobs, because the proportions and the scales and things, that I didn't draw this up in 3D, I only used 2D CAD to draw it, and it's still nice to see that these proportions and the volumes of space are precisely what in my mind they were. So that's the ultimate reinforcement you can get as an architect, and that's why it's been so interesting to do, to come full circle with it as a project.
So this is the hammer that bangs down on the steel piles with whatever weight that is, and they've got these crosses. Well, that's my crosses, which they're going to check for squareness, and they've got their own steel markers there, and they're going to. So it's about how many bangs it takes for the steel to go 1 metre into the ground, and this steel's got, we're expecting 12.5 metres. It's going to go down till it finds something hard, which is supposed to be the papa rock that runs under the river.
This project was very much a personal project, so although I work in the building industry and I have a lot of relationships with people in the construction field, I didn't really approach it in my usual professional way. It was more a personally driven process, and so it really sprung from the people I spoke to who found it interesting, and the ones who found it interesting were the ones that I really worked with. I did price it in a normal way for the shell construction, and the thought was that after the shell was built and the licensed building practitioner components were signed off, then I would look at finding the right individual or group of individuals who could take the interior from there to the end. And it didn't really work the way I had planned, but we did have the people who had the best price did the envelope, the structural envelope and the weather tightness envelope, and from there it was actually their contacts who were the builders who finished the inside, and just through head scratching with people, we had a price for the copper roof which had come out of a bigger company in Wellington, and it was probably 5 times the cost of what we in the end built. So we opted for a compromise of the mastic roof on the parts that you can't see, and then the guys suggested a local plumber who had all the old what's called jennies in his workshop, which would enable him to make those copper trays by curving it and folding it and, you know, rounding the edges like they do on the old guttering. And so that's how Kerry Buchanan came into it. Actually, there were 2 guys who worked one after the other on the inside, and neither of them are licensed building practitioners, and they were people that I hadn't had any previous contact with, but they were recommended by the builder, and they both ended up being just right and prepared to have the patience to work with the old timbers which had nail holes and putty in them, and some of this timber's been used 3 or 4 times, and it's quite time consuming and at times frustrating to work with. So they both were very patient and very focused on the aesthetic outcome. I sort of feel like some builders are much more comfortable with the first stage of a building, maybe slapping up a frame and, you know, doing the real hard stuff. But these guys were both very focused on the trims and the aesthetics and making things work, and really happy to talk things over with me and sort of think about it at night, probably in the middle of the night, and come back with really cool ways to solve the problems that we had.